And we'll bring in Al Sacco, who does a great job covering the Niners. And he's with us on Niners Nightly on the Sports Leader. Al, how are you?
Doing good, Larry. What's up, buddy?
Well, Skyy Moore is what's up. The Niners traded for Skyy Moore from the Chiefs, and I was just going into how, it doesn't do a whole lot for me.
No.
He was a second-round bust. The price was low, but the price was low because the player's not very good. And I've watched Skyy Moore. He was a prolific college player for 3 years at they're there at Western Michigan or Central Michigan or wherever he's played. But he's he doesn't get off the line of scrimmage. He doesn't get anything done. He didn't do anything last year, probably an injury, but they were about to cut him. And I just think that this is an NFL caliber receiver, but nothing more. And I still think the Niners very much need another receiver.
Yeah, it's a move you make, I guess, when the 5 of the 6 guys who probably would have been your 6 wide receivers aren't healthy or aren't going to be there. You don't have Ayuk. You're not going to have Robinson because he's suspended. Jennings, who knows? Cowing got hurt again today. Watkins, who I think everybody likes is a rookie, is hurt. So it's a move you make when you may have to start Russell Gage, who hasn't caught a pass since 2022, and Robbie Chosen, who hasn't been relevant since even before then, or at least had a relevant role, I should say. I agree with you. Skyy Moore doesn't do anything for me. The Chiefs had wide receiver issues last year, and he couldn't get on the field. He's got 43 career catches, 494 career yards, and a touchdown. He was a second-round pick. The Chiefs have needed wide receivers, and he hasn't been able to get on the field. So it's like you said, somebody they were going to cut anyway. It's just a move for the Niners. Look, the Niners' top 4 guys, when everybody's healthy, are going to be Ayuk, Pearsall, Jennings, and Robinson. But like I just said, they're not anywhere near that right now. So they just need bodies. And I think that's all this is right now. You hope you can maybe, get somebody who hasn't hit his potential and maybe he can fit into this offense. But I don't even know if it's somebody who's going to be on the team midseason. I wouldn't get too excited about it.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm not, I'm not saying that this, I don't know if this guy even makes the team. The Niners also signed Malik Knowles back today. And I was just mentioning how he's kind of a kick returner. The guy that I was, hoping they were angling for was Romeo Doubs. Now, Romeo Doubs is a free agent at the end of the year, but Romeo Doubs has got, we played at Nevada. He's got some size. He's had some production. I mean, Romeo Doubs could step in here and produce. That's the kind of receiver I was kind of hoping they were going to go after, and maybe they still will. Let me ask you about Jennings, though. What's your read on Jennings? He was at practice yesterday. He's dyed the hair purple now, but he was like he was there to do a couple stretches, and then he had one of the Niners little muscle bound helpers taking pictures of him on the sideline. I get the feeling that this one. I get the feeling that the calf injury is not legit. Because it's like he one day he's rehabbing it, the next day he's nowhere to be found. He looked like to be in great shape before he went out. I'm not saying that it's a bogus calf injury. I just don't think it's keeping him out. I don't think that's why he's out. I think he has some form of a calf injury, but I don't believe it's still keeping him out. I think if he had the contract that he wanted to have, he would be participating in practice right now.
Yeah, I think it's probably a little bit of both, right? But the Niners are in a weird spot with him because really what is Jauan Jennings going to be for them in the grand scheme of things? He's 28, I think, right now. So you give him an extension, which he did earn last year, but at what number? So you'd extend him for 2 more years, maybe through age 29 and 30. But in an ideal world, he's their 3rd wide receiver, right? Because Brandon Ayuk just paid a boatload of money to. I know this year we got to see he comes back from the injury, but they owe him a ton of money next year. So they're going to probably be here next year. So you still hope that he's your alpha guy. And Ricky Pearsall, you drafted in the 1st round to at least be a really solid wide receiver too. And he's shown that he's on an upward trend. So what's Jennings' role here? He's probably the 3rd wide receiver. And if Kittle and CMC have a couple years left, then is he the 4th option? Is he the 5th option? And I know he stepped up last year. He did. And he's a great blocker and he's a fan favorite. And what he does really well. But what is that worth to them? How much is that Jauan Jennings worth to the 49ers when you have Ayuk and you have Pearsall and you have Kittle and maybe you have CMC? A Shakir or a Slayton contract, maybe 12, 13 million a year, maybe.
Yeah.
But he's probably asking for more than that. I would think if he wanted 12, 13 million a year And you would sign that where it's a 2-year extension, probably really a 1-year extension, like 15 million guaranteed. I think if he wanted that, it'd be done. But I feel like maybe he's asking for more in the 15 to $20 million range, which is crazy if that's what he wants. He's had one, again, Jauan Jennings is a fan favorite. I'm a big Jauan Jennings guy. But he had one good season at less than, was it 973 yards? And in his career, he's got less than 2,000 yards. That's not a $20 million receiver. I mean, come on. And especially if you're the third or fourth option on the team, I think 12, 13 mil a year is fair. I don't know where the Niners are. I don't know where he is. Nobody does but them, I guess. But feel like if cooler heads prevail, and maybe it will when the season starts, maybe he'll come in on that and they can add him on for a couple more years. But, it doesn't seem like the Niners really want to do that. I mean, they pay their stars. We know that. But, they didn't want to pay Jordan Mason. They could use Jordan Mason right now. And they didn't want to give him $4 or $5 million or whatever it was. And maybe they don't want to pay Jennings. And, Larry, what's been a little crazy to me, if you listen to John Lynch, he said, however long ago it was, we're going to take some lumps this year. And then Kyle Shanahan just had an interview recently where he talked about, we're in a weird spot. We have these stars and we can still compete with these stars. But other than that, we're kind of rebuilding. We're kind of retooling in other areas. And if you listen to them, I feel like they're kind of telling you where they are. We have these stars, but other than that, we don't know. And yeah, we're here to compete this year, but maybe temper your expectations. And I feel like some people are listening and some aren't. This could be a season where I still think they're going to fight for a playoff spot, but Super Bowl, and I think maybe they feel that internally too, which is why you see maybe how they're handling some things like they are with Jennings.
Which makes you wonder if they should just pivot off of some of their stars and try to divest. If they don't get off to a hot start, maybe try to divest themselves of a couple of these contracts at the trade deadline. They've got some of the more coveted players. Back to Jauan for just a second. He right now is between he's the 45th highest paid receiver. If you're looking at this graphic, he's being paid in the same neighborhood as Kendrick Bourne, Brandon Cooks, Rome Odunze, Drake London. I think that's exactly the neighborhood that he belongs in. Odunze and London are better than him. They're just younger and haven't accomplished as much. Cooks and Bourne are not as good as him, but they're older and they've probably accomplished more. And then if the Niners were to give him $20 million per, he would be in a neighborhood, let's just say, that includes Terry McLaurin, Devontae Adams, Chris Godwin, and Stephon Diggs. And I'm the bad guy here, but JJ, you don't belong in that neighborhood.
Right.
You don't belong in that neighborhood. Just because you're third in Jauan doesn't make you McLaurin, Devontae, Godwin, or Diggs. You're just not. So, I don't. So then the question, and we'll stop sharing that. But I tweeted this out earlier today, and I want to get your thoughts on this little. Wrong button. Here we go. This is what I tweeted out earlier today. I said if the Niners, okay, wait a second. If the Niners trade for a legit wide receiver, which I don't think Skyy Moore is, by the way, that's the ultimate power play move on Jauan Jennings. My guess is no extension is looming for JJ. San Francisco doesn't want to rip up his existing deal. Bad precedent. Rosenhaus won't sign an extension that takes JJ off of next March's free agent market. So they're at an impasse. What will they do if he continues to sit out? They have to have a plan. The Seahawks are waiting for them in week 1. Will JJ be in the proper frame of mind if he returns without a new deal? Do the 49ers even want a less than 100% happy Jennings? I said, stay tuned, folks. It's about to get juicy. And I really do kind of believe that because I kind of feel like the Niners are like, hey, you know what? You got a deal. And I feel like JJ's expressed his unhappiness, but he's done it kind of in a respectful way. But eventually this pimple is going to have to get popped. And eventually this thing's going to have to be decided. He's either going to have to play on his existing contract and be happy, or they're going to have to give him more money or watch him not show up or trade him. I don't see any other options there. What do you think the end game is going to be on Jennings?
I think eventually he's going to show up because he's going to have to. I mean, if there was a huge trade market for him, I feel like the Niners, you'd hear something, or the Niners would be entertaining it. And maybe if they didn't go through what they did with Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk, maybe they would have said, hey, maybe we'll give you a little more or whatever. But they did, and I don't think they're going to do that a third time with another receiver. I do believe he'll be on the field, but what kind of shape is he going to be in? I don't know. And we saw it with Ayuk. last year. He waited all offseason. He wasn't in training camp, whatever else. And before he got hurt, he didn't really look like himself, or at least he didn't produce like himself. And then the same thing with Jennings, he comes on, he's not in shape. And then, where are you? It's going to take him a while to get going. And again, he's not on Brandon Ayuk's level. He's not the kind of wide receiver. So it's a little crazy to me. And I hope, I don't hope he's injured. I hope he's healthy, but I hope that it's a legit reason that he's staying off the field, I should say, and not just because he's holding out for money. Because if he is doing that, I think he's hurting himself and he's hurting the team.
One thing that's, everybody kind of sees all the players as the same, but they all have different presences, right? There are some guys, if they're not there, you notice they're not there. And then there's other guys that if they're not there, like you don't even notice if they're there or not there. Mm-hmm. They just kind of blend in. This is the kind of guy that really has a powerful presence in the room. And I just don't think that you want him unhappy, but you don't want to rip up his deal and set a bad precedent. I kind of agree with the Kawakami article where they said, hey, the timing's just all wrong on this. I think they genuinely love and respect this player, but there is no move to make here because of what I said. He's not willing to give up free agency. That's his big payday. They're not willing to rip up his existing contract. So there, and then the other thing is McKivitz is in the exact same situation. And if you don't, and he's shown up all summer and played in the broiling heat of Santa Clara. And what, you're going to reward JJ for not showing up, but your McKivitz, who is showing up, doesn't get that same grace. I think an extension might be a bad thing for the 49er locker room.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I know he's well respected. And again, Jennings is a good player. He's really good at what he does. But as I'm looking at this and I try to look at it rationally, and you take your fan hat off and everything else, what is he worth to the team? He's the fifth option on a healthy 49ers team. McCaffrey, Kittle, Ayuk, Pearsall, he's the fifth option. So what are you paying for that? So yeah, you may say, well, the first half of the season, while Pearsall's, hopefully working his way up and Ayuk's working his way back, maybe he's wide receiver 1 and he's the third option. Okay, so are you going to pay him $20 million a year for 5 or 6 games? So you have to look at it that way. Again, we love what you do, but let's look at it in reality. You're not Ayuk. We drafted Pearsall to be wide receiver 2. Kittle is Kittle, McCaffrey's McCaffrey. The offense is going to flow through those 2 guys. You're a fifth option, man. And if you look at your production, we'll look at Khalil Shakir, look at Darius Slayton. Your production is more in line with those guys, not with the guys you mentioned, like a Terry McLaurin or Jalen Waddle, Devontae Smith, guys like that. So we're not going to pay you $20 million, but we like you. Maybe, we'll give you 10 or we'll give you 12 or something like that. And to me, that's sensible. But I feel like if there was a 2-year, $24 million extension on the table, it would have been signed. Or if for Jennings, but maybe Jennings wants more. Maybe Jennings wants 15 to 20, and the Niners are never going to do that. I just don't think they will. And Jennings has to ask himself again. He's not making a ton of money. He's making 7.5 this year. And I think he will do better than that on the open market if he has another solid season. But he's got to ask himself at some point. He's going into his free agent year. He's got to have a good year. If they're not going to sign him, he has to have a good year. If he has 30 catches for 350 yards this year, he's probably going to make less than he did this season, so he's got to come in and have a solid year. So eventually he's got to get in there. And if they're not going to come to this contract extension, he's got to accept reality and say, okay, I just got to go out there and have a great season and hit the open market and, bet on myself.
I think they're going to trade him. I think they should trade him.
Oh, you do?
Yeah, I do. Because as I said, I think you're right. I think if he even has a decent year this year, he's set up for 3 years and $50 million. They're not going to give him that. So he's in his final year with the 49ers. I don't think there's any question about that. And, and I understand where he's at, right? He's 28 or whatever. He's looking at his NFL mortality. He's like, I got to get that one big deal. And he'll get that one big deal if he has a decent year. But I think he's going about it all wrong. You have a contract for $7.5 million. I would have gotten myself in camp, in shape, and had myself an amazing September, and carved out a good statistical year as the primary guy in September, and then cash out for $50 million. Jacksonville or whoever's gonna pay you. We'll pay you. I really think that's the move. I mean, instead, you're gonna, cause bad vibes. And I mean, I'm not sure what would get the Niners more criticism, if they don't sign him or if they do. Because if you don't sign him, it's like, oh, you didn't sign JJ. We love JJ. But if you do sign him, you're signing a guy who has been out since April with a calf injury. It's August, and you already have $30 million sunk in a wide receiver that is not going to play until we're carving our Thanksgiving turkey. So are you really in a rush to give more money to receivers that aren't going to play? And he hasn't played for the summer. What are the odds that he gets a hamstring? I would say it's probably like 50-60% chances.
Oh, yeah.
So then you'd have Ayuk and JJ making big money sitting on the side. I think you have to start looking beyond 2025. And if he really, I'd move him for one reason, because he's a very powerful presence in the room. And if you don't pay him, he may play nice on day one, but he was not going to be happy. And I've seen, when you have certain kinds of personalities in the room, if they're not happy, they become distractions. And JJ's a very passionate football player, but if he's not happy, I don't know if he would be a guy that you would want in the room.
I get all that, and you're totally right. And again, I get why people like Jennings. If you're a fan of a football team and you see somebody like Jennings, he's tough. He makes big catches. He's going to block through the whistle. He's someone you want on your team. But again, let's look at reality here. He's like the fifth option on a healthy team. He has no leg to stand on contract wise. That's what's kind of crazy about this. Like, there's a lot of talk like, oh yeah, he's wide receiver one. Yes, for like a month, and then not anymore. And usually, I guess I tend to side with the players. I understand there's a market and you want to get these contracts done. And I hate when things take forever. Like the Niners have, it took forever with Bosa and they caved. It took forever with Ayuk and they caved. And that hurts the team because these guys aren't ready. And I just, I'm always like, just get it done. But in this situation, I kind of agree with them, unless he's asking for 10, 12 million. And they're just like, I think they should pay him that. But if he is asking for that 15 to 20, I totally agree. He's not that type of a player. And he hasn't had the pedigree. He had one pretty good season, 973 yards or whatever it was in today's NFL. It's a good year, but it's not, he didn't have a 1,300-yard season, a 1,500-yard season. He's never had. He's got 1,900 career yards. To go and say you want to get paid like a Terry McLaurin or Devontae, I mean, come on. And Jauan Jennings, I love you. I do, but what are we talking about here? The Niners would be nuts to do that, I think. Again, given that in a healthy team, I'm just going to keep saying it. He's like your fifth option on a healthy team.
Let's move to this other topic, because I want to get your thoughts on this. These are the odds on Brian Robinson's next team. And the Niners are 4-1 favorites. Miami's 5-1. Browns are 6. Bears at 8. God, the Bears have been looking good this preseason. Dallas is probably the team that needs them the most outside of the Niners. They're at 9-1. Cincy and Kansas City at 10. What do you think of Brian Robinson? And I think the Niners are kind of speaking indirectly. I mean, Trey Hendrickson's out there, and they have almost $50 million of cap room, and they're not making a move for him because they don't think they're a Trey Hendrickson away from winning. Mm-hmm. And you can kind of tell. I mean, they didn't make a move giving draft capital away of significance, and they're not giving any away next year. That's kind of significant because they think that, next year's there might be a bad year and they're going to need all their picks. So I do find it interesting. It's like, it seems like, they could go after guys in free agency, but they're not going to. They could trade for a McLaurin. People like Damon were calling Keenan Allen, sign those guys. They've shown no interest in going to the veteran route with any significant. Right. It's all guys on the periphery, the kind of the perimeter of their careers. What do you think? I think Brian Robinson makes a lot of sense. What do you think about the idea of trading for him? Because it sounds like the price tag might be a late day 3 pick. And to me, if you're going to have the 49ers, number one thing is they have to keep McCaffrey healthy to have any shot at all. And that means you got to have a really good RB2. And I just don't trust Garendo to be that right now.
Yeah, I don't think McCaffrey, maybe he can be the guy that he was a couple years ago where you give him 400 touches, but he's not going to last if you do that. Now, McCaffrey's one of the best players in the NFL, but in 8 seasons, he's had 3 of them where he's played 7 games or less. So he does get hurt. They have to manage his touches this year. As hard as it is to keep him off the field, they have to manage his touches. I like Garendo, but he's shown that he has an injury history. Jordan James is already hurt. I think it's a great idea to get a vet back in here, somebody that can come in and maybe have 6 or 7 carries. And if McCaffrey's a little banged up or has to miss a game, that you can rely on, you can give Brian Robinson 15, 20 touches if you need to. I think it would be a good trade for them. They're going to go this year, I think, how McCaffrey and Kittle go. And they have to keep those guys on the field because the defense is young. There's going to be growing pains there. The offense is going to need to score points. And we saw what happened last year without Ayuk and McCaffrey. They got yards, but they couldn't score. And they couldn't get big play touchdowns. They had 15 of them in 2023 and only 4 last year. So they need to keep guys like McCaffrey on the field. And if they don't do that, the offense is going to suffer. So as hard as it is to take them off, they have to, look at it sensibly and say, yeah, we need another guy who can handle some touches and spell him. And, if there's a Thursday night game, maybe Christian only touches the ball 10, 15 times instead of 20, things like that. You need somebody to spell him. So I think that'd be a great trade, especially for a late pick. I'd like to see them get another vet back in here with all the injuries they have. And you don't want to rely on James. He's a rookie. You don't know what you're going to get there. And Grendo's not healthy. So to get somebody in there who can spell McCaffrey, I think would be a great deal.
Give me a positive or two that you're really excited about coming out of the first 2 preseason games. I've got a couple that I think are not necessarily on people's radar, but go ahead. Do you have one? Is there some player or position that you feel really good about after watching the first 2 preseason games?
Ricky Pearsall, I'm really excited about because they need this so bad. They need him to step up and they need him to be a good receiver. In the last 2 games last year, he had 8 catches for 144 yards and a touchdown. And preseason's preseason, but if you watched the last game, him and Purdy had a great connection. And he was open and Purdy looked like he trusted him. So Ricky Pearsall was a huge one for me. And the other biggest thing, and I know this is, obvious stuff, but like I said, if they're going to be successful, they need McCaffrey and Kittle. And by all accounts, they've both looked really good. And if you have those guys in top form, to me, I say, okay, McCaffrey's in top form, Kittle's in top form, Pearsall looks like he's going to step up. Maybe this offense can be pretty good. And that will help a defense that I'm definitely worried about because of the youth and because of all the injuries we've seen on the defensive line. The Niners are going to have to score some points this year. So those are the 2 big things for me. It might be kind of obvious ones, but I think on a team that you have to rely so much on your stars, if you're getting good news from those guys, that they're healthy and looking good, that's the best news you can get.
One guy that I really liked in this game this weekend was Trevis Gibson. And this is a defensive lineman they got. He had been with the Bears. He had a 7.5 sack season with the Bears not that long ago. Anyway, I asked Saleh today after practice about Gibson, and I think he kind of gives away that he really likes Gibson. Listen to this.
Robert, what'd you think of Gibson? He flashed a couple times and he drew a couple penalties on them as well.
Yeah, he's another guy who, he got here real late and out of necessity, and he's taking advantage of his opportunity. But you always love stories. Coach Bradley always says that no matter how doom and gloom it might seem, there's going to be a story that comes out of this, positive story. And so, he's one of them that's been taking advantage of his ops.
What do you think of that? I mean, first of all, he's describing this season as doom and gloom, which doesn't necessarily inspire confidence. But at the same time, he likes Trevis Gibson. And I do think they got something in Gibson. He's wearing number 56. People can watch out. People can check him out for themselves. But he caused 2 penalties against him this week. One was a hold. He got a sack. He's got length. He's got some athleticism. He's not old. I think they found a piece there, at least another guy who can rush the passer.
I hope so. I know Valdez looked good on the defensive line for them too. I feel like there's going to have to be a guy like that steps up that we're not counting on or paying attention to that much because of the injuries and because of the unknowns there. Even getting Sammy O back was huge. I thought he played well last year. And, if he can make the team here as one of the defensive ends, he was good. So any guys like that can step up and give this defensive line some depth is huge because Alfred Collins doesn't really look ready. The other guys we saw, they're role players, Elliott, guys like that. And Michael Williams and CJ West have been injured. And that's scary because they need those 2 guys. So anybody who could step up right now, I think the Niners got to be excited about.
Yeah, no question about it. Another guy that I just absolutely love watching. We talked to him today. Is Tatum Bethune. What Bethune has really looked good in his second year here. My son put together this little thing from today's presser. Here's Bethune. I was asking him about his hit on Ashton Genty. Here, a little bit of that.
You got a good pop on Genty in this game. Who took the worst of that? You seem like you got hit. He got hit. What'd you think of that play?
It was a great hit by both of us. You know, that's what you want from a defender, not even just me. He go into that kill zone, somebody go sting him, and the rest of the defense rally to the ball. It was a 2-yard gain, so I'm proud of it. So yeah.
I love this kid, man. All he does is run and hit. He's so destructive on the field. He remade his body in the offseason. He told us today, he's like, yeah, I had to give up some things. And somebody's like, what'd you give up? He's like, I got a sweet tooth, man. I gave up candy. And then Eric Branch, they're like, all right, thanks, Tatum. He's like, oh, I've got one more question for him. And the PR guy rolls his eyes like, Branch, go ahead. And then he goes, what candy specifically has been the hardest for you to give up? Which I thought was kind of funny. I thought he would laugh. Instead, he was like very serious. He's like, I really like Swedish fish. I really like Swedish fish, but I've had to quit. Anyway, it was cute. It was funny.
That's good.
But I love to me, if there's two guys that, man, win, lose, or draw, it'll be fun to tune in to watch these guys do their thing. Tatum Bethune and Nick Martin. These guys play for keeps. They run around, they hit. They're so violent. To me, the Niners aren't the Niners unless they have violent linebackers. I was worried when they lost Greenlaw, they wouldn't have one. They've got a couple right there in those guys.
Yeah. And what you mentioned, I think the big word for me there is depth, because we were worried about it, and we still are. But now D. Winters looks like, okay, he's playing well. Can he be that second linebacker? But we don't have any depth. Well, now we have, you talk about Bethune's playing well, and Nick Martin had a better game this past week. So now all of a sudden, maybe there is some depth. And you look in the secondary, guys like Chase Lucas who are stepping up. Dallas Flowers, Robinson, guys like that. Okay, maybe there is some depth. Maybe, there is some light at the end of the tunnel. So the more guys like that flash, it's good news for the Niners, because we were so worried about, oh my God, if Bosa goes down or Warner or Lenore, they're in rough shape. But the more guys that flash, maybe they can hold their own a little bit.
Tell people we're right at the end of the show here. We only have a couple minutes left, but I'm a big fan of Al Sacco. He does a great job covering the Niners. Al, if people are not familiar with you, you come on my YouTube channel from time to time, and we love having you, and we'll definitely have you back. But this is your first time on the KNBR YouTube channel, so some of these people are seeing you for the very first time. Tell them a little bit about yourself and what you've been doing covering the Niners, because I think your podcast has been one of the better Niner podcasts, and I think you're one of the voices that I always seek out when I'm looking for sanity and independence.
Yeah, I wrote for KNBR in what was it, the 2019 season. So I did some work there. I've done USA Today, and I've been with the Web Zone for a while writing, and I'm doing that right now. Podcast went for 8 years, and we were recently with Odyssey, and I had to step away from that for a while. I may go back to a pod at some point, but I don't know if I'm going to do it this season. I may just write this season and take some time off. I don't know, 8 years was a long time. It's kind of good to take a breath, but always going to be writing, always going to be doing content, always looking for opportunities anywhere, for anybody who's, interested. I'm always willing to listen, but you'll always find me in Niner spaces and writing and seeing some articles out there and doing guest spots and everything like that.
What year did you first start covering the Niners? Because you've been doing it for a while, huh?
Oh man, I think it was 2013 when I started writing here and there, and I wrote for some different things. And we started the podcast. It was the first year of Shanahan. It was 2017. And we did a lot of shows, and I think it was our fourth show when we were lucky enough to get Mayoko on, and that kind of broke us a little bit. Like, oh wait, these guys had Mayoko on, and we've had a lot of luck with guests over the years. And then again, we signed with Odyssey, and we were with them for 3 years. So yeah, go back and listen if you haven't checked it out. 49ers Web Zone, No Huddle. Again, we've done tons of interviews with players and guests and everything else. It was really cool. It was a fun time. But yeah, check me out on Twitter too, at LSacco49 if you're there, or X, whatever it's called now.
Yeah. I still call it Twitter. Last one, Niners Chargers to wrap up the preseason, which means we get a Jim Harbaugh sighting. Harbaugh, I don't know if you heard the mouth of the South roar today, but Feinbaum is just tearing into Harbaugh. He's the biggest cheater of all time. And, it's pretty entertaining. I mean, he's pretty much done as far as college is concerned. And he was found to have cheated there at Michigan. They don't have to vacate, but, he'll be vacating the college game because he's got like a 10-year suspension if he ever comes back. But that brings up the debate. Anytime Harbaugh rolls into town, it always brings up the debate. Harbaugh and Shanahan. How would you compare the two? Is it simply Jim's a better coach, 44-19-1. Shanahan's record isn't as good. Period. End stop. That's it. Or is there nuance to this thing? Is Kyle the greater talent? Is his offense? Is he the bigger offensive genius? Who's the better coach? Who's the better offensive genius? I always think of Harbaugh as a great coach, but then his scheme is very much a Bo Schembechler 3 yards in a cloud of dust, where Shanahan seems more like the mad scientist. But his team, I don't know if he doesn't get as good assistant coaches. Harbaugh always seems like he's got top-tier coaches around him, Brad Seeley, Ed Donatel, Vic Fangio, a great coach, DJ Durkin. He's had all kinds of great coaches around him at all of his stops. How would you compare Shanahan and Harbaugh? Who is the better coach? Is it that simple where you could say, it's this guy because of this?
Yeah, I don't know if it's that simple. I mean, Shanahan's the better offensive coach, but Shanahan isn't the OC. He's the head coach, right? I think as a like you said, full-scale football operation, I'd probably give the nudge to Harbaugh. But Harbaugh's also insane, so there's that part of it. So he kind of wears his welcome out places. So, I think Shanahan's probably better with the players and better to work for. And Shanahan's done a good job with being a CEO and hiring some coaches too. But yeah, I think overall football coach, taking the being insane out of it, I probably would give the edge to Harbaugh, but not by a ton. I mean, Shanahan's a terrific coach too.
I have to recall the great Gary Radnich, who I worked with for over a decade, who used to say he judged everything by, would you want to drive cross country with them? Right? He'd be like, I don't know if that's the kind of guy I want to drive cross country with. I think I'd much rather drive cross country with Shanahan than Harbaugh, but Harbaugh is a kick. I mean, and there's no question he gets good coaches. I think he burns out. I think he's the kind of guy. I thought college was the perfect venue for him because by the time you're tired of his stupid stories, you graduate. And there's a new kid there to hear his dumb stories. I think that it didn't wear well here. I was there at his last game in the room where he's like, "Who's got it better than us?" And people were like, it was like, there was not a whole lot of support right then for that. And I
there's
just
a
got the
shelf
feeling
life on
that it was
him.
over. I got the vibe that
there's
it
a
was
shelf
done.
life there.
Yep.
Definitely.
Al, awesome stuff, man. Thanks for jumping on Niners Nightly. We'll hopefully do it again. And we really appreciate you jumping on.
Thanks, Larry. I always appreciate you.